Yopal, beautiful land of plains and landscapes of the other world. It is ideal for those wanting to experience something different in Colombia. Tourists come for adventure tourism, bird and animal watching, water sports, and paragliding. Yopal has several sites of interest for visitors, such as markets, museums, Roomba bars, and parks in and outside of the city. Yopal is a story of a crossroads that one day became a station, then a livestock trade center, and eventually became the most oil-producing region of Colombia. The young city of Yopal has grown a lot in a short time. The name Yopal comes from the consumption of the hallucinogenic plant named Yopa, which abounded on the banks of the Cravo River. It was a widespread practice among the Achaguas, the tribe that populated the territory that today constitutes the municipality of Yopal. Excavations show that the Achaguas were farmers and hunters who consumed yucca, seeds, and fruits, and exchanged products with the mountain range tribes and with the Spanish. They get a lot of honey, black wax, tiger skins, and sometimes water wolves that they catch in their fisheries. And with these items they buy blankets and cloths to wear from the Spaniards, said Ribeiro. Other tribes present in the region were the Salivas, the Cacatillos, and the Tamaras, along with nomadic groups such as the Tunebos, the Chiracoas, and the Guahibo, the latter being wild and violent according to the Jesuit missionaries. Missionaries and conquistadors found a densely populated foothill area here. It is said that in the Morcote, Pauto, and Tamara alone, there were about 6,000 indigenes. And together with the Tunubos and those from the town of Chita, they formed a very large crowd and difficult to indoctrinate due to their variety of languages. The first conquerors appeared in pursuit of El Dorado, but in the absence of gold, they almost completely disappeared from the scene. The Jesuit Missions arrived in Casanare around 1650. They took the place of the absent Spanish state and started livestock, agricultural, and commercial projects in haciendas, which were estates. The Indians were congregated and trained as labor in agriculture, artisanal, looms and wood carving, etc., and artistic tasks such as playing the harp. The Jesuits, who were accused on some occasions of exploiting the Indians, entered into conflict not only with the crown, but with the other religious orders until their definitive expulsion in 1767. In the plains of Casanare during the second half of the 18th century and before independence, herds were organized with wild cattle and escaped horses from the ranches of the Venezuelan coast. This led to conflict between the landowners and the nomadic tribes who took for themselves heads of cattle and horses. Practices tending to the extermination of indigenous peoples, already inaugurated by the conquerors, were generalized, often with state support. Simultaneously, the paradigm of the plainsmen, the Colombian cowboys called llaneros, was consolidated. Skillful in the work of livestock, imbued with a libertarian spirit that would help them achieve freedom. It was from these plains that came the troops, many of them llaneros, that helped expel the Spaniards in the 19th century. Llanera culture which is being radically broken by the pluricultural manifestations, creates a need to make cultural identity compatible with the development of the modern world. Populations close to the still unborn Yopal acquired a preponderant role, especially Pore, which Francisco de Paula Santander declared the capital of New Granada, unquote, until other provinces are liberated, quote. There, the offensive for independence was scheduled, which ended in 1819. Later, Casanare's prominence faded, and it was once again isolated from the rest of Colombia. The city of Yopal originated at a crossroads. The cattle that came from the plain inside passed the Cravosur River and then rested in El Yopal, a place covered with yopos, before continuing towards the mountain range. In 1915, Elias Granados built a farm to serve the muleteers there. In 1928, houses were built by Pedro Bernal, Concepcion Camacho, and Pedro Pablo Gonzalez. In 1932, the first school was founded by Marcelio Niño. The first parties were held in 1934, enlivened by the Tasco Band. In 1936, the town went from police inspection to corregimiento, and its first corregidor was police sub-officer Guillermo Diaz Martinez. Commercial growth made the population begin to dispute El Morro, located 15 kilometers away, for the status of municipal seat. In 1942, the Assembly of Boyacá, department to which Casanare belonged, resolved in favor of Yopal, the litigation initiated by the lawyers Fernando Reina and Sergio Reyes Moreno. The transfer of the telegraph from El Morro to Yopal was an important milestone for the city. In 1973, Yopal was elevated to capital of the then administration and from 1991 of the new department created by the Constitution. The 50s, 60s saw the consolidation of Yopal as a commercial center that received a first wave of immigration of peasants from different regions of the country, fleeing from violence. But the security they were able to achieve was scarce and brief, because the conservative forces, backed by the government, descended on the plain with the slogan of destroying the liberals, which gave rise to the resistance of the liberal guerrilla of the plain. The first neighborhoods that emerged in the 1940s were San Martin and El Centro. Land legalized by the administration was colonized on vacant land until the 1960s, when neighborhoods such as Bello Horizonte and La Capina and Gavan were born. In 1945, an aqueduct and a telephone were installed, which provided services between Sogamoso and various towns of Casanare. In the 1970s, airport rehabilitation and urban electrification works were carried out. But without a doubt, the most remarkable aspect of Yopal's history has been its growth. From 3,122 inhabitants in 1951, the population rose to 86,860 in 2003 and multiplied 29 times. Between 1993 and 2003, the number of inhabitants almost doubled and registered growth rates almost 5 times higher than the national average. It went from 44,761 to 86,860. If the cattle trade promoted the birth of Yopal, oil was responsible for its growth in the 90s. And although the hydrocarbon reserves are not in the jurisdiction of the capital of Casanare, the truth is that the oil boom experienced especially in Agua Azul and Torramena had a direct impact on the fate of the city. After the confirmation in 1991 of the existence of important hydrocarbon reserves in Cusiana and Cupiaga, Yopal began a transformation process with several protagonists. one being the multinational companies that exploit the resource, the waves of immigrants who responded to the call of the black gold, ordinary and qualified workers, professionals and providers of various services. Other important roles are played by the local authorities that are surprised by the new circumstances, and the armed factors, such as FARC, ELN, and the paramilitaries. For some, the oil industry has been the redemption of the city, the key to its growth and development. Others describe this economic activity and exploiting multinationals as vehicles of plunder, inequity, violence, and damage to cultural heritage. The most relevant phenomenon of this time is migration. Between January and August of 1996, 6,000 people arrived in Yopal. In 2000, only 30% of the population is truly native. More than 15% of households house people who live there temporarily, and between 1993 and 1996, 51% of the houses are rented. Quote-unquote room or apartment type units are multiplying, occupied mostly by men who come looking for work. The oil salary is 116% higher than other salaries in the country. Without family, and they remain only a few months without settling down. The city faces problems related to the management of free time and lacks human capital committed to the collective construction of the city. However, the capital of Casanare experienced improvements in different aspects. Due to the oil boom, in 1973, 26% of dwellings had access to energy, water, and sewage. In 1996, it reached 67%. The connection to energy went from 33% in 1973 to 98% in 1996. In 1976, only 76% of the houses had floors and walls, and in 1996, it reached 97%. But planning was absent, and resources were not always properly and honestly managed. In 1997, the city did not yet have a municipal development plan. Municipal services, despite their growth in absolute terms, were unable to meet the demands of the growing population. The aqueduct and electricity networks installed in the 1980s offer partial and poor quality services, as does the garbage collection system implemented in the 1990s, which became insufficient in 1997 when a health emergency arose, with garbage scattered throughout the city. In 2004, Coporinokia granted an environmental license to the Aqueduct and Sewage Company for the construction and operation of the Macondo Phase 2 sanitary landfill, with a projected useful life of 10 years. Despite the fact that in the last 10 years of the 20th century, the municipal administration initiated some social housing projects with the legalization of vacant lots, these had a discrete impact, while clandestine urbanization continues to spread. For years, there was a negative perception about the quality of education in Yopal, the product of an undeniable reality, which forced families from the middle and upper classes to send their children abroad to go to good high schools and universities. This contributed to marginalizing many natives from job opportunities related to the oil industry, especially in the case of professional and skilled labor jobs. However, Yopaleños have noticed a change in recent years and say that in response to the thirst for knowledge existing at all levels, everyone studies something, first-class colleges have been established. University centers such as Unitropica have close to 1,000 students and affiliates of institutions from other regions of the country that have improved the offer of higher education. As for postgraduate studies, in 2005, less than 9% of the population had completed them. For many, their fate will depend on how Yopal knows how to deal with the inevitable fact of the gradual decline in oil reserves. There are many challenges that the capital of Casanare has begun to face. It is stated that the region will have to recover its agricultural and livestock vocation and open up to tourism, all within a new perspective based on environmental, cultural, and social sustainability. The concern for micro watersheds is the expression of the new culture that tends to spread. Likewise, the search for an institutional stability that Yopal has lacked for various reasons is imposed. And while it is true that the public order situation is tending to improve, it is also true that many of the ghosts that terrorized the area in the recent past remain. Paramilitary presence, false positives, an influx of Venezuelan refugees, among other factors, make it hard to refer to Yopal as a city with a normal level of security and public order. I have a separate video on my channel regarding the safety of Yopal, and that will be coming up. A place that I got to live in for a month and got to check out the entirety of the city as well as the surrounding natural areas that I got to explore and make videos of. And all of those videos can be found in the playlist that is linked in the description below this video. And in that description, you can also find a link to another playlist that I made of the first time that I traveled through Colombia. This was on a bicycle, part of a larger trip bicycling through Latin America. And I have playlists for all those countries that I bicycled through Latin America, Eastern Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, etc., all available on this very same YouTube channel, Hum of the Earth. Alternatively, if you'd like to see an interactive map of everywhere that I went and everything that I got to see and do, I have that map available over at my website, followthehumoftheearth.com. Where you can click on the different locations on the map and see the various videos and blog posts that I made of these places. And if you'd like to follow my continuing adventures through Colombia and beyond, you can do so by clicking on the red subscribe button below the video and clicking on the bell to be notified when new videos come out. Alright, so that's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good one.